I want to tell you a story and then read a scripture, and then we're going to worship some more and call it a night. And before I tell this story, I need to tell you that my mom and dad are in the room, and so they're going to have an idea of who I'm talking about, and they're the only ones who will know. I'm confident of that. I kind of surveyed the room, and no one else knows who this is. So I'm going to tell you a story, and then it's going to be, gosh, maybe 15 minutes. So you guys be ready, all right? Be ready to jump back up. When I was really young, there was a guy who was probably he was quite a bit older than I was, but we became friends. And what I'm going to do, for the sake of protecting those who the story is about, because it is a true story, is I'm going to change the names, okay? Because even though you're probably not going to know these people, there's a chance that you will, all right? So I'm going to call this friend Joe, all right? And this guy, one of the things that you need to know about Joe, as I begin, is that Joe was one of the most incredible human beings you would ever have the opportunity to meet. Joe was very, very charismatic. He was very gifted. When I say charismatic, I mean he had incredible leadership, administrative skills to lead large groups of people. He was an incredible person. He was loved by everyone. He was liked by everyone. Everyone wanted to be like Joe. Everyone would see him and recognize immediately his greatness. So he was very popular for that reason. And so Joe was when I was young, he was getting married. And we'll call his bride, we'll give her a name, we'll call her Lisa. Just for the sake of throwing out names, all right? And Lisa was also very beautiful. And Joe absolutely loved her. One of the things I remember about Joe is that he loved, I've never seen someone love another person as much as Joe loved Lisa. There was an incredible bond, an incredible relationship between those two that is unmatched if you were to ever see a relationship of two people getting married. And I know that you like Kenny, you and Randy are getting ready to get married, and you're thinking there's no way that it can be closer than ours. And I hope not. I hope that you have that same kind of relationship. That's as much as you two love each other. Just imagine that, okay? That's exactly what this was like. And so on their wedding day, I had the opportunity to be part of this. On their wedding day, there were a lot of people that showed up to this wedding because this was an incredible family, an incredible couple, an incredible person. And everyone wanted to see this wedding ceremony. And that entire day, Joe did everything he could to make the entire day be nothing about nobody except for Lisa, his bride. For he loved his bride so much. And when she came down the aisle there, you know, he saw her, and there was just the sparkle in his eye, the smile on his face from ear to ear. You could tell that he was so proud of her, and the whole time during the ceremony, he was just in awe of his bride. Well, after the ceremony was over and they had the reception, one of the things that I remember the most about this, the reception, was that, you know how at wedding receptions, a lot of grooms will save up some money in order to buy his bride a really nice gift, like one really nice gift. Well, Joe didn't just do, Julie's looking back saying, I don't remember that. I didn't get anything. It's still coming. He built you a house. What are you talking about? But Joe didn't just save up money to buy one gift. Joe actually bought many gifts. And it was incredible to see just gift after gift being opened. And one of the things that if you would have been there, you would have seen this. You would have noticed that Joe wasn't taking any of the glory or any of the spotlight for himself. He just sat back as Lisa sat up there and opened her gifts, and people were watching her and oohing and awing over her. And he just allowed her to have all of that attention and that just enjoy the splendor of the moment right there. And that's just how much he appreciated and loved his new wife. Well, they went on to the honeymoon. And aside from the traditional things that you do on honeymoons, they also took as much time to get to know each other on an extremely deep level. They were intimate in more ways than one. And when they returned, Joe said his goal was that they would know everything about one another, that there were some things that they hadn't known about each other before the honeymoon, and when they returned, he didn't want to have any voids, complete transparency, and that's exactly what it was like. Well, when they got home from the honeymoon, one of the things that they had been talking about before they were married, when they were during their engagement period, was where they were going to live and what kind of house they would have. have. And Lisa would always say to Joe, you know, I would just be happy if we could have a little 2-bedroom house to start off with out in the country. And Joe would always just kind of nod his head and say, yeah, me too. All the while knowing in the back of his mind that he had been, for many years, saving up lots of money, and he had accumulated some wealth in order to build her the kind of house that he felt she deserved, which was a huge, almost a mansion of a house. And so when they returned back to their town, and he went out to show her the house, he said, I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to take you to our house. And they're driving out this driveway and down this street. And on the corner of this street, there were other houses nearby. On the corner of the street sat this beautiful home with a big, beautiful yard, beautiful landscaping, all the works. And he said, okay, you can open your eyes. And she opened her eyes and she said, whose house is this? And he said, this is our house. And she said, this can't be our house. This is too much. And he said, no, honey, I love you, and this is what I want to give you. This is what you deserve. This is what we deserve as a family. And so she was just amazed. And they lived in that house, and they loved each other. And everyone just looked at this family as a family that everyone would want to be like. This was like the perfect, community family. And just as families, do, before long, they decided they wanted to have children. And so they had a son. And this son, I knew him as Josh. Joshua was his name. I called him Josh. And Josh, as he grew up, I'm going to skip through a lot of the details of his younger years, but as he grew up, he as can be expected, because of this couple and how amazing they were together, it could just be expected that Josh also would be, this all-American boy. He was perfect. He hardly ever did anything wrong. He was a mommy's boy, a daddy's boy, a community boy, a Boy Scout. He was great at everything he tried. He got good grades. He was great athletically. People loved him. They voted him a class president and student council and all the thing. And he got picked on. It wasn't that he was just like some Superman. He did get picked on by other kids, but for the most part, this was the type of son that everyone would want to have. And everyone would look at Josh and they'd say, man, isn't that a great kid? Well, yeah, of course he's a great kid. It's Joe and Lisa's kid. So you have Josh and Joe and Lisa and this perfect family. Except, after a few years, something began to go wrong. And no one could really ever understand why. Because they had everything. And Josh was a little bit too young to recognize what was going on at the time. But here's what was taking place. Lisa, she would begin to become distant. And there were some nights when she didn't come home and they didn't really know where she was. And then there were some days when she didn't come home at all. And then that became a week. And then she'd show up. Well, as you might wonder, what was taking place there is that she had begun an adulterous relationship. She had become an adulterer. And Joe knew it, and Joe always forgave her, always welcomed her with open arms, always said, this home is your home, and I want you to be here. Are you happy? I've tried to give you everything to give you joy. Do you have joy in this home? Do you have joy in this family? And for some reason, she just kept going. And it wasn't far. It's just right down the street from their house. There was this guy that was an older fella, and no one could ever understand why, because he couldn't give her any of the things that Joe could give her. We'll give him a name also. We'll call him Mo. And Mo, I know it's strange, they kind of rhyme, these names do, all right? But Mo was just, he didn't have the kind of wealth that Joe had. He didn't have the kind of personality that Joe had. He didn't have anything that Joe, but for some reason she was attracted to this guy and she kept going to him. And not only that, there were days when she would come back over to Joe's house and it was obvious that she had been beaten. It was obvious that she had been mistreated. It was obvious that there were times when he had raped her and treated her horribly, and she came back and Joe would wipe away her wounds and hug her and take care of her and meet her needs, and she would go right back again. And it wasn't long before she just finally left.